Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Stock Market Today. Ali Corm and Ed Carson here with a breakdown of the action in today's session, where it continues to be a very headline-driven market, Ed, with the major indexes finishing today at session highs.
Yeah, so it was a nice bounce, but we have to put it in perspective. But there are some stocks that are setting up if the market continues to do well: Nvidia and Albemarle, which both have earnings tomorrow, and Union Pacific.
All right, well, we'll take a look at those setups and analyze the major indexes to put everything into context, like you said, Ed. So here's a look at the NASDAQ composite, which finished the day up about 2.5%. Same for the Russell 2000. We had the S&P 500 up 1.6% and the Dow up 1.2%. So obviously encouraging to see nice percentage gains, but when you look at this chart, it's hard to get too excited just yet, Ed.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you look at the headline numbers, like the figures, you're literally looking at the numbers. Wow, 2.1%, 2% gain in the NASDAQ. That's great. And then, yeah, it's a 3-day high. I mean, you need to look on a daily and weekly charts to put the moves in perspective. It's really hard to see this as anything more than just a move within this range that it's sort of been in for a while. I think until the major indexes, get above their early February highs, which with the S&P 500 is basically in line with the 50-day line as well. It's hard to say that the market isn't still in sort of a choppy rut, and we could go sideways for a while, which in the long run wouldn't be the worst thing. I mean, more bases would set up. It was looking weird when we were running straight up that first bit from late January. That can happen, but this, it's more normal to have this, but we definitely could also go down as well. So I think you just have to keep just in perspective. This was one day, it was nice, but doesn't really change anything.
Yeah, and the S&P closing just above the 200-day line today. And in addition, we saw a close earlier this week below the follow-through day low, a further signal that perhaps, not a guarantee, that perhaps we could see some more of that chop from here, like you mentioned, Ed.
Yeah, and it's just so difficult in this kind of market to with the market sort of in a downtrend still, even though we're in a confirmed rally, it's under pressure. The last couple of weeks have been negative. And with the headlines in there, how can you have any conviction? I mean, literally just, a headline could move the markets a couple of percentage points either way. So hard to feel confident that, while today didn't change anything, if we had fallen further, it would have been really negative. So I guess it was nice to have that positive, but that's, we're still tilted to the downside.
All right. Well, maybe some of the earnings reports coming up will be a step in the right direction, but we will have to see. We're going to get results from Nvidia tomorrow, and it had a nice move heading into the report, up over 9% today and some above average volume. But we don't like buying stocks right before their earnings reports. B, Nvidia has taken a big hit. It has recovered some of those losses that it saw in January, but it's still below its 50-day line. Earnings could be a big key to where Nvidia might be headed.
Yeah, it could go either way, and it could go a lot. So if you were to play this now, you would definitely want to do an option strategy. For most people, just waiting for the earnings would be the way to go. Yeah, in addition to the fact that, yeah, it's come down a lot. And, just like the other things, this is a 4-day high for Nvidia, 9% gain, nice, but it's not really changing anything. The relative strength line, it's off its very worst levels, but it's still nowhere near the highs. There's all sorts of things. I mean, that's after a huge run, so it could certainly come back, but there's a lot to be in there. I mean, on the and we don't even really like it when the 50-day line is declining at such a pace. I mean, it's one thing to retake the 50-day line. So why am I talking about it? Well, it could still have that momentum. It is sort of right up at a trend line. If it can bounce above the 50-day line and the 10-week line, there would be some positive things. It would still be, even for an early entry, fairly aggressive, and one that you'd want to be ready to get out of too. I mean, if things don't go, because this could gap up on earnings, and then you just don't know if that's going to hold. We've seen that with other stocks have strong earnings, it gaps up, and then a few days later, a lot of those gains are gone.
Yeah, Google, a great example of that. So you mentioned the aggressive entry if we do get a strong move here on earnings. But at the very least, yeah, let's see if it can hold that gap, if it does, we don't even know how the report's going to shake out. But doing that scenario analysis, if it does have a positive reaction, can it hold it? I think would be pretty important if we're going to continue to see the market head higher.
Yeah, this is also just a bellwether for chips and for the market. So this is going to be an important report. Even if you say, I don't want anything to do with this stock, which would be fine, you really want to pay attention to this earnings report. And Applied Materials will be out tomorrow night. So big day for chips.
Yes, it is. All right. And also setting up ahead of its results is Albemarle getting back above its declining 50-day line already as it carves the right-hand side of a base, potentially a resistance area within the base as well here, Ed. But Albemarle is a stock that, in that EV related theme that we've been covering quite a bit, and a new base forming here.
Yeah, a couple of reasons why you could like this, especially if you like the EV space, is that there's a good chance that lithium plays are going to do well, regardless of who wins. You don't have to pick the EV winner. There is going to be demand for lithium, more demand than there will be supply. So the pricing has been tremendous. Their earnings should surge up as those contracts start renewing again. You can see, that's why the earnings aren't tremendous in 2021, even though the prices are up. And the other thing is, so moving just a little bit to the right, the PE ratio, while it isn't low, is nowhere near the levels of most of the EV stocks. I'm just throwing that out. So I think that price point that you marked is a good one. That one could be a good early entry. Again, if there's earnings, it's showing some rebound. It's actually coming up over the last 3 weeks, which is nice, over the last few weeks, and is near those recent highs. The RS line isn't at highs, but it's definitely improving. So definitely one to watch. There's also, this one's tomorrow night, then there's Livent. So there's definitely in this basis, these stocks are coming up again.
Well, let's also check in on UNP, Union Pacific, talking about a lower PE stock. Here's one for you. Working on a base, a potential trendline entry with the shares getting above the 50-day line today in a gain of about 2.8%.
Yeah, I mean, this one's nice. And this base is only 8% deep. It's hard to imagine with all the bases we're used to seeing of like 30, 40 and these weird gyrations. So that's a real positive. It really didn't fall at all. The volume was light on the decline overall. This didn't have that massive sell-off. So there's a trend line there. You could wait for from the highs from a couple of weeks ago. Heck, even if you waited for the official breakout, we're not talking about a huge amount from the 50-day line. I mean, so again, because it's 8% deep, again, with fuel costs being high, rail may do better than trucking firms, perhaps. And we know how the ocean-going shipping firms are doing well. I mean, the economy is going pretty well. These rail operators have pretty good pricing power. This one seems to be doing pretty well. So I think that if you're betting on the economy and thinking that's going to be doing pretty well, this seems to be one that has some pretty good numbers, going now and going forward.
And while this may be a sleepy stock in the long run, it can make moves. So we saw that in last fall. So we'll have to see if maybe it has another strong move in it. But at the very least, it seems like it's a type of stock that if the market does get really hard, as you demonstrated with the depth or lack thereof of this base, that there's a lower risk with going with something like a UNP in the current environment.
Yeah, that is a good point. If you're going to stick your neck out, it's nice that it won't get chopped off completely, maybe if it goes down.
Won't go off the rails.
Won't go off the rails.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Ed. And thanks to everyone for tuning in. We'll, of course, be back with more tomorrow morning on IBD Live. So we hope everyone joins us, investors.com/IBD Live for all the details on that. And coming up tomorrow, we have a special webinar on short selling hosted by our very own David Saito Chung, but it's going to be David squared because we're also going to have David Ryan participating as well. So that'll be a good one. So make sure you check out investors.com/webinar for all the details on that tomorrow. And of course, as always, if you can't catch our webinars live, we do archive them at investors.com/videos. Thanks so much for tuning in, everyone, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow.